Hello, gorgeous. Part 2 of how I became and why I became a prostitute. Now, in part 1, we talked about how I was dumped by a very rich lover, penniless in London, how I picked myself up, joined an escort agency, saved some money, moved into a flat with a friend, eventually saved enough money within 18 months to put a third down on the flat and buy it. Once I owned the property with a mortgage, I then was a legitimate self-employed masseur. So let's go on from there. I could then go to the bank and get credit cards as a business, which was a major bonus. Now, at the time when I first bought the flat, I knew I was doing massage and everything was doing well. I was getting a good income, but I knew there was something more. Now, the more that I thought of was something I'd never done before, I'd never seen before, I'd never spoken to anybody about it before, I'd never even seen it in a porn movie. But I've always felt led and guided, and something was telling me to do up the loft in the flat. The flat was in a 3-story terrace house, sort of a basement flat, raised ground floor, then the top floor, which is mine, with the loft. And I did up the loft as a dungeon, all black and red, with canes, whips, straps, bull weights, handcuffs, gags, marks. I really equipped it with stuff I knew nothing about. But it was a really good room. Lots of little spotlights and mirrors everywhere. Very good, sexy little room. Big room. Had a glory hole. It was designed just for one purpose, the whole room. Now, when it came time to put an advert out, I put an advert out again, which was you had to be careful with words and you couldn't put VVWE and all these sort of things you can get away with today. So I, again, with words, and people copied this. Harness your fantasies. London's top leather master administers the only service advertised. Bound to take some beating. Full dungeon. Blah, 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 blah. Went on. Shower and refreshments fully inclusive, one set price. And business was very good for that. Very good. Because it was the only one advertising. Now, the first client I had for that service, I was dead nervous because I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I had the room set out. I had lots of equipment. I'd bought some, made some. A friend had given me a few bits and pieces, and I didn't know what I was actually going to do. And the first client turned up at the door, and I had one of those standing behind the door moments of panic, thinking, because normally I would be like, oh, hi, how are you? Come on in, we'd like some tea or coffee, Coke, lemonade, where have you come from? Friendly, nice. You don't do that when you're the master. And I stood behind the door for a first minute and thought, oh, shit. And I went into one of those blank, panicked moments where nothing is going on inside. Duh. And I came out of that and instantly opened the door and went, you're late. And he went, oh, sorry, Chris. I went, it's Christopher on the advert, not Chris. And to you, it's Sir. And he went, I went, upstairs now. Anyway, went up there with his tail between his legs, told off, and part of me was going, ooh, what did I just do? It's just not me. I'm just a light-hearted, easygoing little twit, really. But I'm not an aggressive person. But suddenly this aggressive side of me came out. Anyway, I went into the loft with him and I took him through the routine. And the only thing I learned from that first time was not to use padlocks with keys, because when you're doing up somebody with lots of padlocks and lots of keys, you get the keys confused. So I found something better, if I can find it underneath me. I found something better, which I'll find later and show you, than the padlocks. And other than that, the session went really well, and he came back 3 times in the next fortnight. So clearly he liked what I did, and I was being much more aggressive. Now, after a couple of months of this, I had a client for the dungeon for Christopher who really pissed me off. He tried to quibble over the price. I don't appreciate that. I'm not a bazaar. I'm not some, cheap whore you can quibble over. Thank you very much. And this was at the beginning of the scene in the loft. He agreed the price eventually on credit card. And halfway through the service, I've got him tied up, face down, mask on, fully tied up, couldn't see what was going on, and I nearly beat him up. I was hitting his head gently from each side in the mask, and I was just about to really fucking lay into him because he pissed me off, and I was really bad when I went whoa, and I didn't hit him, but for me it was a learning curve. I was like, whoa, I nearly did, and I had to then realise that Christopher, the character who was aggressive, could take over. Was getting a little bit too much Christopher in John's life, in my life. My flat, which is underneath the dungeon, was beige. The loft conversion into the playroom was black. And little bits of black started creeping down into my beige life downstairs, like I had a beige couch with a couple of black cushions, a black drape. It looked stunning, very Biedermeier, but it was little bits of Christopher's character was coming into the John's character. And I was finding myself becoming more aggressive in my everyday life. And there was an evening when I had done a session in leather, and I'd gone out still wearing my leather. And I went to Copa's in Earl's Court, and there was some guy standing at the bar, and I trod on his foot. And he went, oh, my foot. And I went, well, fucking move it then. And he went, don't get you, know, fucking queens. And as I said it, I looked across the bar in the mirrors, back at myself again, and I saw John, not Christopher. Although I was still dressed and I was the character of Christopher, I saw John. And I went, oh, what did I just say to that guy? I was so rude. And I saw, so aggressive. And I saw a couple of clients across the room, and I had to go over and camp it up. Oh, you'll never guess what I just said to that guy over there. I had to go and camp it up and exorcise the Christopher that I brought with me from home to the bar. I didn't mean to. And it was a learning curve that you have to be strong about who you are in the escort business. Otherwise, you can find yourself drowned by the sheer volume of sex, but drowned by the fantasy of what people expect of you. And if it's that aggressive service and you're being aggressive 5, 6, 7 times a day, you can find yourself being aggressive in your private life. And you need to learn the boundaries. And there will be boundaries. And one of those, the first boundary I always learned was to laugh. So after an outrageous, weird session that you might get asked to do, and you think, oh my God, but it's paying, so I'll do it. I would always have to phone up a friend and go, oh, you never guess what I've just done, and have a good laugh and take the piss out of it. You had to. If you didn't, you internalize it. And when you internalize it, it goes from mind into body, into soul, and you can become really screwed up physically, emotionally, and mentally. You can play with your health. You can play with your mental well-being. And you can play with your sexuality. So I did learn. I've always had a good sense of humor. I've always laughed. And I learned way early on that I needed to laugh. The dungeon player paid very well and played very well. I really began to enjoy it. Things I'd never dream of doing, you'd be asked for. And you think, but I always said my catchphrase was, no problem. No problem. Whatever you ask for, no problem. Always safe. I was always the top. Always used condoms. But anything you wanted in that dungeon, and I mean, I can think of, the only thing I can think of I didn't do was electrics. I never plugged anybody into the mains. But just about everything else that I can think of. Put some comments down below if you think of things that you want to share. Anyway, this went on for some years, and I also started at that time a group called the 30 plus, escorts and masseurs over the age of 30. We don't employ boys who are trying of our experienced men. I don't know whether I talked about this before, but it was an agency for guys over 30. And that became busy. But after 6 or 7 years, I knew I needed more space. So I put the flat on the market, sold it within a week, and bought a house literally 200 yards away around the corner, again in Hammersmith, a 3-story terrace house, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and moved in there. And for ease, as an escort over the years in the flat, I sort of started new things and new adverts, needed another phone line. So I had cables everywhere, wires everywhere. So when I bought the house, this was about 1992, 93, I did spend a considerable amount of money, over £4,000, on a telephone system, no digital systems like today, that was beautifully put into my house. It had 6 lines, it rang the doorbell and everything. It was so much easier to have one phone. There were 13 of them in the house, but one phone picked up all 6 lines and I could see who was phoning what advert from wherever. And that was superb. And I moved into the house, had a dungeon. The top floor was the dungeon, massage room, and I put together a sort of a wet room, bathroom, shower room, and a little kitchenette area for drinks and nibbles. I always kept biscuits and cakes for people's blood sugar levels, and always kept juices and things. You never know what can happen after a good old rumpy pumpy. You need some food, you need something to eat. And the house proved to be very successful. The top floor was for business, the next 2 floors where I lived, and it was great. The bondage side of it was becoming very well known because nobody else was advertising it. And even when they did, they couldn't compete. You had to have a whole room set up, as I did. And most people who have a spare room in their flat rent it out. They don't think of the investment. Now, initially at the flat, when I put together the first dungeon, I put together £1,000 budget to have I had to have the flooring put down by some builders and wired and so forth. And I thought, I'll put £1,000 budget and see if that'll pay for itself. It did in the first week. It's like people worry about advertising costs. You've only got to do 1 client a month from an advert, and that's the advert paid. So if you're doing even a client a week, that's 4 a month. Your advert's paid, well and truly paid. But you'd hope to do, as in my case, all those years ago, I was doing anything up to 20 to 25 clients a week. Some would be out calls, which pay more. Some would be in calls, which pay less. But it certainly was busy. The escort agency was busy. The bondage room was busy. My massage was busy. And it was very popular. Now, I've also got to say here that nothing I say is true. It's all a lie. Or is it? It may be exaggerated, because I do exaggerate stories. But then it's also pinpoint accurate truth as far as I can recall it. I don't need to bullshit. I don't need to lie. I don't need to exaggerate, actually, because my life has been an amazing journey. And through the sex industry, I led the way. Everybody knew me. Clients knew me. Other escorts, when you say I'm London's finest masseur or whatever, like, oh, I've seen your ad. Oh, that's you. Oh, that's you. And you did meet some pretty bad escorts, some people who didn't really put anything into the business. Like anything, you need to invest in the business, whether it's your time and consideration, or get a proper massage table and some proper gear. So invest in, if you're going to do leather, invest in the equipment. Don't just buy plastics and, do it properly. Whatever you're going to do in life, do it properly. So the escort business was taking off and doing well. And a little later on, I might be sharing with you some of the stories. Oh, God, there were so many stories, but I'll be sharing some of the stories with you. There were famous clients, very world-famous clients. I went to America to see people, Scotland, all over the United Kingdom, mostly within London and mostly to the big hotels, or they came to see me. But I preferred it if someone came to see me because it was easy. I opened the door, they left, and it was just an hour. Otherwise, it'd be half an hour, 40 minutes getting somewhere. Then you might have the thrill of not getting into the hotel. If it's late at night or whatever, they don't just let anybody in. And then you've got to get your taxi home. So it's easier if people came to see me, and most people did. But I did enjoy the faster hotel trips because there was a lot of hotels I got to see. Never got refused, only the once, and that's another story. It's not an easy business. It's a business that people like to knock you for. People like to put you down for. People like to treat you like you're some sort of cheap whore. As if I've ever been cheap. There's more whores out there giving it away for nothing. I was a businessman. I had a business. I had what was on offer. And if you didn't like what was on offer, there was no alternative. I wasn't good. Some people might say, do you do so-and-so? It was always no problem. But if ever somebody wanted me to do something unsafe, I don't care how much you want to pay. I'm 68 years of age today. It's, what is it, February 2014. I'm 68 years of age. Not doing too badly for my age. I'm still HIV negative, never caught a thing. I've had things decades ago before I started the sex industry. But as a sex worker, I never caught a thing. Probably a cold, but I stayed clear of everything. And as I've said before, the pieces of the puzzle of my life have always somehow slotted into place. It's been like I'm led, I'm looked after from somewhere. It's always been that way, and I'm very, very grateful. And that's why I've always dedicated, donated, done whatever with my life as much as I can to help other people, because life's been good to me. And life isn't so good for many, many people. And if I can just put myself out there a little bit to help people, if we all put ourselves out there to help other people, and not for some hidden agenda, not because you're going to get something out of it, but because it's the right thing to do. One day I might need help. There are times in my life when I have needed help, and friends either have or have not been there for me. And it's the ones that have that are worthy, and it's those who are still my friends today. So just by helping and being there for other people, I may be an escort. Now, I had a client one day who was very tall, overweight, then in his late 60s. I was in my 40s maybe. And he took his clothes off and he laid on the table, and when I touched him, his whole body quivered, absolutely quivered, and I knew he hadn't been touched in a long time. Now, I don't remember what I did with him, but at the end of the session, when he was getting dressed, he was chattering away, and I asked him if he'd like to stop and stay for a cup of tea, which he couldn't believe the escort wanted him to stay longer. He kept saying, "What, you want me to stay?" I went, "Yeah, have you got time?" He went, "Yeah, I'm not in a hurry," but I said, "Well." So he went in the garden and had a cup of tea and a piece of cake, and I said to him, "Look, you've just told me upstairs while you were getting dressed that you were a teacher in the same school for 45 years, and now that you've retired, you feel your life is worthless. Let's look at this a different way, shall we?" And I just took him through half an hour of chatting about things and self-worth and self-value and self-respect. And when he left, he gave me a big hug and said, "You're a really nice guy, John." And I said, "And so are you. You seem to have forgotten that." Anyway, he came back about 15 months later, a changed man. Absolutely changed man. He kept thanking me for the fact that he felt like a broken down car, and now that I'd repaired him. And I kept saying, "Well, I didn't do any repairing work. You did that. I just simply advised you that maybe there was something you needed to work on. You could need a horse to water. You can't make it drink." And he kept saying, "No, it was you, it was you." It's just like, no, it's you. And I totally respect and value and thank you for coming and sharing with me. Because it's always nice when you do put yourself out to help somebody that you find out later that it did do some good. And I wasn't just interfering, I was trying to help the man. Now, I told this story at a group in London of gay men forming a community group over 16 weeks. Didn't work. We did not form community at all. But when I told this little story, some of them rounded on me and said, "Well, what makes you so clever? You can help him, you can help him, you know, all really arrogant little shits." And I said, "Look, nothing helps me help him, nothing." But I heard him. I heard a man who was crying out in pain. "My life's worthless. I don't feel like I've got any reason to live. I was 45 years in the same school and now blah, blah." But I chose to hear him and feel his pain. And if it takes half an hour of my time with a piece of cake and a cup of tea to say, "Come on, let's look at this differently." And if that can do some good, then I will. And if that's arrogance or whatever, then call it what you will. But I think that we should all be listening more, helping more, putting yourself out there for people. And people like the other people in this group, they didn't give a shit. "Oh, I've got my own problems to worry about. I haven't got time for you." And dismissed people like him. Well, I chose to hear. Plus, I'd probably just wanked him off anyway. I don't remember, but, you know, something more personal. But I chose to hear him. And I chose to help by simple ways, and it changed his life. Now, like a therapist, I always used to tease and say, when people say, "What do you do for a living, John?" I used to say, "I'm a sexual communications therapist." And they'd all look at you and go, "What's that mean?" I go, "A tart, dear, an escort, whore, hooker." But on many levels, sexuality heals. It can also destroy, but many levels it can heal. Relationships that are non-sexual, because of the kids, because of whatever, and it's easier to go and just pay for it. Get it out of the way and sort it out, no problems. You meet a lot of guests, a lot of clients. I saw tens of thousands of clients over the years, and we'll go into more details on some of the other ones another time. But for now, I'm in the house, working 7 days a week, running the escort agency, doing bondage and discipline, massage with happy ending, and I'm busy. I was very busy. So let's discuss some more of it some other time. So I'm going to leave it there for now. So please do register and join us. Do keep up, subscribe, and I hope we'll see each other again soon.